It is Wager Talk Today for Friday, June the 21st. As we head into Substitute Saturday, it's Substitute Friday. I'm Steve Merrill filling in for the Prez, and that's Andy Lang, my co-host, filling in for Teddy Covers. But don't you worry, we know how to fly this airplane, and you're in for a great show today on Friday. We're going to start it off with Marco D'Angelo, the legend, Marco D'Angelo, one of the co-founders of WagerTalk.com. He's going to look at a couple baseball games, Nationals, Rockies, also Orioles and Astros. My two Northern Virginia teams, Marco, from Las Vegas. I like it. Andy Lang's going to have a What Bettors Learn, a very interesting segment. He and I are going to discuss how time equals money. It applies not only to sports betting, but to life in general. Mark Zinno also on the show for us. He's also, of course, a baseball expert. He's going to look at a couple ML games as well. And he's going to have a big game breakdown on a fight, Professional Fighters League, the prop master, digging deep for one of those off sports that he does so well in. And then we finish off with Arthur DiCesare from the Westgate Superbook in Las Vegas. One of my favorite segments every week is Friday with Arthur, because we get the view from the other side of the counter. And don't forget, it is June and July is around the corner. And if you buy July right now, you get the rest of June for free. And, you know, Andy, I gave out this promo on Monday and I've gone 7-0 since. And everyone's like, well, he can't keep winning, so why get the rest of June free? Well, there's still 10 days for June. Yeah, you missed the 7-0 4-day start, but you're getting the next 10 days free for myself, Steve Merrill, Andy Lang, and our next guest, Marco D'Angelo. And we all have different plays. We all do different sports, so you can mix and match. There's no promo code needed. Marco D'Angelo, welcome to the show this Friday, my friend.
Hey, glad to be here, Steve, and congrats on that streak you've got going, and keep it going. I'll be rooting for you for probably another maybe 12 or 13 of them, you know, till you get close to that 25, then you're on your own.
What's the record, Marco? 25?
25-0. Years ago, 2010, we did that in a baseball season. But mine's got an asterisk, and pretty proud of that one. We never laid more than 120 on any game during that streak in the baseball season.
I got to tell you, Marco, I hate coming on this show when I'm on a streak, because everyone's like, oh, congratulations on 6-0. You know, Marco, and I'm like, yeah, I know. Heard it. So you are synonymous with winning streaks. That's the best thing about that streak, is that whenever someone goes on a good undefeated streak, your name just automatically gets brought up. So that's a pretty awesome thing to be associated with. Let's talk MLB. Dog days of summer. Not a ton of sports going on, but there's always profits to be made in MLB. We're going to talk Washington and Colorado. What do you like about this game?
Well, I'm going to take a look at the Washington Nationals, and I think this is a great spot for them. Steve knows I like situational spots, and we're catching Colorado to start with, coming off that big series with the Dodgers. Even though they're always, you know, generally lose to the Dodgers, it's still big for them because the Dodgers are the king of the hill of the National League West. So we've got a negative for Colorado to start the game. Then we look at Washington. They're beginning a road trip. Now, you've heard me say a lot of times how I like to fade teams returning home off of a road trip, that first game at home. But there's a flip side to that angle as well. I like to take a team the first game on a road trip. Why? Well, especially if the team has been winning, and Washington's been winning. They're 9-3 their last 12 games. When they go out on the road, they're really focused for that first game because, A, either you want to keep the momentum going, B, you want to get the road trip started on the right foot, so you get a little better intensity from the team. Now, we look at Washington in this game, and they are going to be sending rookie pitcher DJ Hurst to the mound. He has pitched well in his 3 starts. You want to talk about coming into form. You know, you hear me make references to horse racing and pitchers a lot. They're very similar. Reading the horse racing form on horses, they come in and out of form, and your job is try to find those trends. Well, this guy has just come into form. His first start, he gave up 4 runs. Second start, 4 2/3, gave up 2 runs. Last time, he put it all together. 6 innings, shutout baseball, 1 hit, 13 strikeouts. Now, granted, you could put an asterisk and say, well, that was against Miami. They can't hit their way out of a wet paper bag. But still, it was a great start for him, confidence builder for him. And it's going to be the first time Colorado gets to face him. And then we look on the other side of the coin. We've got Colorado Colorado sending Dakota Hudson to the mound. He has just not been good. You look at his ERA for the season, 4.89. Not great, but not the worst out there. But when you look at his home-road dichotomy, it's a big difference. Now, granted, most of the Colorado pitchers are going to have worse numbers at home because of where they pitch in the altitude. But his shoots up to 7.16 ERA in 7 home starts. But here's what's the problem. His whip is 1.92. If you're going to put basically 2 base runners an inning on at home in that ballpark, there's only one thing that can happen. You're going to give up runs, and that's what's been happening to him. And his biggest culprit this season has been his control problems. His strikeout to walk ratio, a horrid 41 to 36. You've walked almost as many batters as you've struck out. That's a formula for disaster, and that's why for the season, they're 1-6 in his 7 home starts. For the entire season, they're 3-11 for his starts. I'll go ahead and take Colorado in this one, I'm going against Colorado. We're taking Washington, and this is the clincher. Why? Colorado just 2-14 when we're looking at a game where it is what I like to say a coin flip game, minus 125 to plus 125 on the line. Vegas is saying you're supposed to basically have a 50-50 shot in these type of games, and yet they're just 2-14 in those. Let's take Washington.
Doesn't get much better than a 2-14 trend. Absolutely be writing that one. Great breakdown, Marco. I have no follow-up. Doesn't get better than that. Baltimore and Houston, we're looking at a total in this one. Do you like the over or the under in this game?
We like the under, and that's going to be an unpopular play in this game. You look yesterday, Baltimore was involved in a 22-run game yesterday, and they scored 17 of them. Now I'm going to come back here and look and say, hey, guys, let's go under 8.5 tonight. Am I crazy? No, I'm not. One game to the next, totally different situation. And we started off with who's on the mound for Baltimore. You've got Grayson Rodriguez on the mound. He is, it was his top pitching prospect a couple years ago. He's rounded into form. He's had an incredible run this season. And you look at him and what he has done for them, especially in the last 7 games. He's allowed 2 runs or less in 6 of the last 7 starts. And he's a pitcher that, he's not the prototype where it's 5 innings and they run to the bullpen right away. No, he's going to give you 6 or 7 innings. He's gone most of his starts this year. So that'll answer a question later if we had our colleague Teddy Covers on here saying, well, Marco, if you like Baltimore and you like this game or you like the starting pitchers, why not go on? Because this guy goes longer because we have the split of why go full game versus first 5. Now, we also look at this fact that Houston is sending a rookie to the mound tonight. This is a guy that has absolutely skyrocketed through the minors. He's only 22 years old. He's pitched this season. He split time at high A level ball at Asheville and double A ball Corpus Christi. All he's done this season in 62 innings of work is post an ERA of 1.74. He has a high strikeout rate, and they've never seen him. Obviously, he's a rookie. I tell you this over and over again, that pitchers come into the league, round the horn the first time, the pitcher has the advantage over the hitter when they haven't seen him yet. So when I got the combination of Rodriguez that's pitching so well right now and goes 6 or 7 generally, I've got a pitcher that probably will only go 5 innings tonight for Houston. I don't think that stretch him farther than that. They're going to probably only want to use him to go through the lineup twice. That's a big edge for him, obviously. I'm going to take this under 8.5 tonight. Houston's not been scoring a lot of runs. This is a team that in 7 of their last game, they've scored 4 runs or less, and they are a team that all season has been an underplay. For the season, if you just played the unders with this team, you would have gone 45-26. I'm going to go ahead and look at this one and take the under 8.5 for the second free play today.
It's Marco D'Angelo talking some baseball with Marco D'Angelo, one of the co-founders of WagerTalk.com. And if you want to see more baseball talk, join me and Brian Leonard live at 2 o'clock Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific today on Friday for MLB First Pitch. We take comments from the chat, any questions you have about specific games, player props, pitcher props on YouTube TV here on Wager Talk. Also, we're on YouTube Shorts now. And if you want to get the weekend day drinking started early on Friday, join us on Instagram Live. It is permitted at any time. As long as the question is in English and decipherable, I will try to answer it if it comes from Instagram Live. Dan Alexander will be handling the heavy lifting on that one back in the studio. Marco, before we let you go, I want to ask you just a general big picture question. You mentioned how you and I are both situational handicappers, especially in football and basketball. We don't get to use it as much in baseball. Obviously the fade the Sunday night team has become very well known on Mondays. But I got to ask you, my Washington Nationals are hanging in there in the National League. Your Pittsburgh Pirates are hanging in there as well. I looked a couple of days ago, guys, and every team was within 1.5 games of the playoffs except for the Marlins and Rockies in the National League. Play them or fade them. These teams like the Orioles are obviously a play on. What about the Astros? Do they come back to life? The Diamondbacks, the Rangers. Any thoughts on some maybe teams that are underrated or overrated right now halfway through the baseball season?
I think Houston is going to have trouble this year. I've been there every year. A couple things, obviously, have derailed them this year. It starts with at the beginning of the season. Them letting Dusty Baker leave, I think, was a huge mistake. This team downgraded immediately, and they've had a ton of injuries with the pitching staff. That's why you're seeing, like tonight, a 22-year-old get pushed through the minor leagues, rapidly. Arizona, I think they're a team that can be a play-on team. The experience they got last year in the playoffs and World Series obviously will pay dividends for them. And my Pittsburgh Pirates, I'm obviously rooting for them. If pitching wins it, this is a team that's got some nice young arms. It starts with the sensational Paul Skeens. This is a team that if they get the pitching and can get some hitting to go with it, I think they're going to make some noise, and I'm looking at them down the stretch with those young arms.
Marco D'Angelo, just fantastic stuff for you. Love listening to you break down baseball. It's not a sport I follow or bet on, so I always appreciate a good breakdown. Tell everyone what you have up at WagerTalk.com for this weekend.
Well, of course, you can take advantage of the deal that Steve mentioned at the open of the show. But if you want to jump on just for the weekend, I got a special offer for the Wager Talk viewers. You can get my entire weekend, 3-day all-access pass, normally $69. If you use coupon code MD49, that's MD49, I'll give you my entire weekend for $49. And guys, we've got baseball all weekend, obviously. I've had spot plays this year in the WNBA. We've only had 10 of them, guys. We're 9-1 with those WNBA plays. And there's a horse race this weekend that I've zeroed in on. It's the Ohio Derby. It's a $500,000 purse. And there's some horses in that race that were in the Kentucky Derby and the Preakness. So be sure to check that out. It will be included in that weekend, all access for $49.
Yeah, it's a great way to diversify the portfolio. Marco doesn't do just baseball. What he said, he sees WNBA plays, and he also has horses. So not a bad time to try out Marco D'Angelo with that promo, all access for just $49. MD49, medical doctor 49. Gets it done with your coupon code at wagertalk.com for Marco D'Angelo. And Andy, I always talk about diversifying when you're on because you do sports that I don't do. You just mentioned you don't do baseball. That's pretty much my focus right now is baseball until football starts. And obviously focusing in works well. I mentioned the 7 straight winners since that buy July, get June free. Well, I also won 4 before that. I'm actually on an 11-0 run. Still not close to Marco, but we're inching closer. And I'm not holding back. I got 2 best bets tonight on Friday, so check those out at wagertalk.com. But Andy doesn't have any baseball tonight. I've got 2 baseball, but Andy's got golf. He's got lacrosse occasionally, darts, MMA, obviously, UFC. But we also learned that PFL stands for Professional Fighters League. We're going to have a big game breakdown on that in a little bit. Andy, one of the reasons I don't mess with some of the smaller sports, I dabbled with NASCAR releasing it years ago, and there was just no market for it. And you and I both started on Wager Talk TV on the NASCAR show, and it didn't take off. We'd get a few hundred views a week. We had a loyal base, but it just never took off. But it was worth it, right? Because we met, we got our feet wet here on Wager Talk, and now we're doing Wager Talk Today and other videos and shows that get tens of thousands of views sometimes. But I think it's very important people realize that time does equal money, right? And you have to kind of cut your losses short, let your winners run. You know, Teddy mentioned that he canceled his wake up and win that he'd been doing for a month or so because it just wasn't gaining traction. How do you balance everything? I mean, you're doing multiple different sports. How do you make it work?
Well, this actually stems from a conversation you and I had the other day, and it was a very impromptu conversation. So I want to get your thoughts on this. So one of the things I've been working on this year is my time. We often think about bankroll management. I don't know if we focus on time management. So one of the things that I've been doing is, what do I spend my time on? Is it productive? Is it not productive? So I did a really big audit on how I spend my time in this business. How much time do I spend doing my write-ups and my articles? You know what I realized? I'm really inefficient. I waste so much time. There is no reason for me to spend as much time doing some of the things that I did. So I needed to make some adjustments. And I'll tell you a story. My wife used to work at a company. There was a guy in finance who he was a full-time employee, and he worked like a few hours a week. Why? He was like the most productive guy alive. Her company got rid of somebody and gave him an entire person's workload, and it added 10 hours to his week. He was just the most productive guy ever. So when I'm looking at what I do, I work hard at research. I work hard at writing my articles, my write-ups, but I started to clean it up a lot. So the last few weeks, my focus was just not overdoing it with too much research. I know what I'm good at. I know what I want to bet on. So that's what I'm going to focus on. I have gotten rid of all of the waste. My golf articles have taken half the time. Why? I know these golfers, Steve. I know their stats. I've been following them all year. I don't need to look up Scotty Scheffler's total strokes gained. He's number one. I know that. NHL props. I already know Zach Hyman goes under his shots and Vladimir Tarasenko goes over. I know this. So I've really been cleaning up the wasted time. So what have the results been? We'll just do this month. There's been 21 days in June. I've had 37 plays. I've won 23 of them, plus 8 units, 7.9% ROI. I've written the same amount of articles as I normally do, done the same amount of shows, but I've done it in a fraction of the time. The results have been great, but I have more time to focus on my audio video production company. I've had more time to focus on spending with my wife. My wife and I watched the entire series of Shogun this week. That's 10 hours that I freed up just by being more efficient. So my bankroll is up. My work hasn't suffered. My clients are happy. And I have way more time just by getting rid of the fluff and the waste. And we hear the terms less is more and work harder or work smarter, not harder. And I got to tell you, Steve, they are words to live by. And you and I had this discussion and I really enjoyed it. So I'd love to get your topic, your take on this topic. I don't think we talk about time enough.
Yeah, I mean, that discussion between you and me was well worth the time earlier this week for that reason, because it gets me thinking more about it. And I'll give some examples from my career. I started over half my life, more than half my life now. I've been a full-time professional sports bettor and handicapper, which is pretty crazy. I started when I was 22 years old, and as the deflated balloons in the corner that are still, I can't reach them right now, say I turned 50 earlier this year, as we showed on the show. But, you know, the thing is, when I was younger, I had that mindset, you know, the harder you work, the better the results. And I'll use college basketball as an example. I used to dread Saturday college basketball in like the late 90s, early 2000s, because I would honestly, Andy, on Friday evening with my sheets, I would graph every game. I would here's another example. I would log all the odds throughout the day for like all the NBA and college games, like 4 or 5 times on it. And like when you don't start doing it, you feel like you need to, because you've told yourself you need to do it, but you do have to step back sometimes and really analyze, like you said, audit. I love that. Audit your time and like, does it matter if I log these odds? Does it matter if I chart every game and then cross off 90% of them? And what I've come to realize with Saturday college basketball now is I have my short list before the games even come out. And I maybe check those 10 or 15 games, and I've cut out the other 90 games without having to actually physically write them down and look at them for 5 minutes each. So you're talking about hours right there. Boston Celtics, game 5. You know, I did every single playoff game. I did a video on every game for the entire postseason. And it would take me 30 minutes to an hour. But prepping for that video was pretty much my handicap for the game. So by the time the video was done, my handicap was done. And that was so much more efficient because I was talking it out. And, you know, a lot of people, I got to throw this in. I had a guy comment yesterday. I did a free play video for that Rickwood game between the Giants and Cardinals. I had no play in that game. There were only 2 baseball games last night. My best bet was in the afternoon. It cashed over in the Yankee-Oriole game. My 11th straight winner for my clients. 17-3 the last 20 on best bets. But someone chimes in on the free play video, lost with your free play last night. And I'm like, well, maybe you should consider using my best bets. They're on 11-0 run and 17-3 the last 20. And then he wrote back, and in my 28 years of doing this, it might be one of the craziest things I've ever seen. He wrote back, just a business idea for you, Steve, is that why not give out your strongest plays for free? Because then more people get them, and you'll win at a higher percentage. And I wrote back, yeah, then why would anybody buy my premium best bets if I was giving my strongest plays for free every day? It's just, that's the logic you deal with. But once again, it's very important to manage your time. And I will say to the younger viewers out there that work hard, that's a good thing. But you also have to work smart, like Andy said, because there's only so much time in every day. And you'll be amazed as you cut things out how other things improve, and it actually opens up opportunities for more things. And don't be afraid to work with others as well. You know, Andy and I network. We all network together here on WagerTalk. And that also opens up opportunity, isn't it? You know, sharing thoughts, great minds think alike, and it's a group thing. And that's another reason I love doing the videos. I always say comment below. I read all the comments. I reply back. I'm sincere about that because I've made some great connections. And Andy, I'll throw it back to you. I know you have as well. You've met people through Twitter, through YouTube. And look, there's idiots like the guy yesterday, but there's also some really sharp sports bettors watching us here on WagerTalk TV. And once again, you cut your losses short and you let your winners run, right? Like anything in life. And cut those connections short when they're morons, but let the winners run and keep in touch with those smart guys like you and I.
Yeah, I partnered up with guys that know sports that I don't. You guys all know Corbin. He does tennis. He does soccer. I don't need to worry about it. My good friend Jim, who you see on all the PFL and UFC videos, he knows PFL a little bit better than actually a lot better than I do. He loves sack props. I don't look at sack props in the NFL. He crushes them. And guess what? It's money in my pocket and it's a time saver. I don't have to look any of those things up. And, you know, Steve, I got to tell you, the one I go back to, when did my bankroll really start to go up? It's when I started putting in less plays. It's when I did less. When I just focused on the best of the best, what I knew the best. When instead of putting in 3 plays, I put in 1 play. That's when my bankroll shot through the roof. So I'm just looking to scale back and scale back. It just makes life easier and better. The results are there. It's numbers based. You go back and look at it. The less plays I put in, the better off I am. And that's been a real key to the success. So I'll keep grinding on that, keep auditing the time. So, yeah, it's very important. I told Sean in the chat, Steve, I was humiliated by how much time I wasted. Like I caught myself, I wrote half a sentence and then I got up and went to my kitchen to grab some water. Half a sentence. I just stopped in the middle of a sentence one time and I was like, what a waste of time. What am I doing? Like get rid of all this stuff. So anyway, that's my rant. I hope everyone takes a little bit away from it because it's been a real eye-opening experience for me.
Well, and to piggyback on that, I will say it's not a waste of time, too, to take a break, to sleep a little extra, to watch a show like you did, or even go to the kitchen and make a sandwich. Like sometimes I'll go down and eat and spend an hour. I'm like, damn, man, it just took me an hour to eat 5 minutes worth of food. But as I'm doing that, I'm resetting. I'm thinking about the game sometimes when I'm handicapping, so there is something to that. I do a lot of coaching, as you know. I come in hot here on these shows because I'm running basketball camps and whatnot. And you'd be surprised. It doesn't hurt your efficiency. If anything, I think it resets you in a positive way. Mark Zinno, former Mr. Military. Mark, I'm sure you've got some time management tips for the viewers out there.
Yeah, one of the oldest adages they have in the military whenever you're giving a briefing to people and standing up there is very simple. Be brief, be brilliant, be gone. And that's what I intend to do with the two of you guys right now.
I'm going to be so brief. I'm going to ask you to give us a baseball game I'm not going to even lead into. What do you want to talk about?
Well, listen, it's Marco just talked about this game with the Orioles and the Astros here. I'm going to take the Astros and take the 1.5 here. Marco laid out the problem with the Astros right here, and that is the fact that they're starting this kid, Jake Bloss, who, by all accounts, has been lights out in Double-A. To make the jump from Double-A straight up to the majors is huge. He's been holding opposing hitters to a 127 average. Granted, again, this is just Double-A hitters, so we'll see what he's got for the big leagues here. But also, this is a Houston team that scores a lot more at home than they do on the road. Nearly almost a run higher at home than they do on the road. Look, Baltimore tends to score everywhere for the most part. Like they're that good of a lineup as we saw yesterday against the Yankees. So, you're bringing in some variance here with Jake Bloss and what he's going to bring to the table. But like Marco said, give the advantage to a pitcher that no one's ever seen before and no one's ever heard of before, because ESPN didn't even have like a picture on him. They just had the MLB logo next to his name. That's how insignificant this guy is at this point in time. But by all accounts, he's going to be really good. Grayson Rodriguez has an ERA that's 2 runs higher on the road than he does at home. So as good as he's been, he's also been the beneficiary of a ton of run support this year. He's getting nearly almost 7 runs a game, 6.67 runs of support, hence why he can have a 4.28 ERA on the road and still be 4-1 this year. So, yes, the Orioles lineup backs him up. But I'm in the same spot with Marco, fading the Orioles after scoring 17 runs yesterday and looking at it going, this is a Houston team starting to turn the corner, it feels like. They're a better offense at home. 3rd in batting average, number 1 in OPS, and number 1 in WRC plus at home on the season. So I expect them to be able to get to Rodriguez here enough to keep this thing close. And if Marco is right that this is probably going to be a lower scoring game, that 1.5 looms absolutely bigger. So let's play against the Orioles, sort of an emotional letdown spot after a 2 out of 3 in New York against the Yankees to get within a half game of the division lead. We'll take Houston plus 1.5 here on the run line.
Great breakdown, Mark. Let's hope you and Marco cash. And it's a great point. When you've got a total you think is going to be low, that plus 1.5 is just more and more valuable. Let's talk about the Royals. I believe you're liking them as well on the run line today.
Yeah, it's a little juicier than I would like, but I can't look at Texas as a minus 140, minus 150 favorite and go, that's a team that I want to play on. They can't score. They can't hit. Like, this is a team that averages 3.5 runs a game, for the season. I mean, it's a little bit higher at home, but when you do the math of they score 3.7 at home and only allow 3.5, that's really works when I'm taking 1.5 here. So Brady Singer, they're 9-5 with him on the mound this year. He's been one of their more reliable starters, a lot hotter at the beginning of the season, starting to cool off here a little bit. And yes, the Royals bats, talk about a home road split, how good they are at home versus on the road. I know that their bats aren't great on the road. They are facing a good starter in Nate Eovaldi here, but they're coming off this road trip here in Oakland where they didn't play all that well. I expect them to get right tonight. I expect that they will be able to score enough here to keep this thing close. It's not a Texas offense that is that bad, should not be laying this kind of number to anybody. Like, I think we're just kind of still thinking that Texas is the team last year that won the World Series and that they should be this kind of favorite. They're not good. They're just not. Like, this is not a good baseball team at this point in time, and the Royals are. So, the Royals are a team that can grind it out. They play hard for 9 innings. You see what happens with this team. A lot of times they start a little bit slow, but come on late when they get to their second and third time of the order. And you add in the fact, guys, that Texas has one of the worst bullpens in baseball, 4th highest bullpen ERA. They've given up 34 bombs on the year in the bullpen. That's top 5, most home runs allowed by a bullpen this year. So we add all that together here. Royals are the better team. We're getting some plus money it's plus money on the money line, but the juice on the 1.5 was tolerable for me given the opponent here and the fact that the Rangers can't score.
It's Mark Zinno, WagerTalk.com. I always enjoy doing the MLB show during the week with Mark. He dives deep into every team. He can talk about every team on the fly. So I'm going to put you on the spot, ask you what I asked Marco. Play against teams here maybe in the second half of the season coming up. Playoff contenders. I mean, the National League is just stacked. I think every team's within a couple games, but the Rockies and Marlins are making the wild card right now. So, Mark, any over-underachievers? And the Royals came to mind when you were talking about it, is why I thought about this, because they got off to that hot start and they came back down to earth a little bit. But any teams you're eyeing, maybe like Rangers, D-backs, to start playing better?
I think the Braves will start to hit. Look, silently, that sweep over Tampa Bay at home helped. And certainly, the follow-up series against Detroit, 2 out of 3 to Tampa Bay and the sweep of Detroit. Look, this is an Atlanta team that's too good to be this bad for this long. So I think they're going to start to win by margin. I know they're in second place here, and the Phillies have a huge lead. I think that they start to win a heck of a lot more than they lose. And I'm still keeping my eye on the Padres. Like, all the numbers tell you that they're better than what their record represents. Last year, we talked about this Padres team that was terrible in one-run games. If they can get some stability in the pitching, that lineup is good enough to continue to score here. So I'm going to look to the Padres a lot in the second half in a division really that's only the Dodgers and them, right? Like there's not else a lot there. I don't believe in the D-backs all that much. I know some people do, but that's not a team that I want to get on. And I believe that the Reds, too, are going to end up being a playoff team. I know they've been middling around 500. They went on a little bit of run. They hit the skids here over the last 5-6 games, but I still like the Reds here to be a playoff team, finish above 500 in the NL Central, and end up clinching one of those wild card spots.
Mark Zinno, he's brief. He's brilliant. But before you go, Mark, please tell everybody what you have up at WagerTalk.com.
Yeah, 2 baseball plays tonight. Yeah, before I be gone, T.Buzz/MZ. I got a real good look on a first 5 spot that I really like tonight. It's my best bet for this evening, WT.Buzz/MZ. And a little promo here, guys. Make sure you guys check out the Morning Wager every single day with me and Brian Power over at WagerTalk TV and WagerTalk YouTube channel.
Yeah, Mark, as I say, they can catch you on the grid as well. Also, you can listen to him on Sirius XM channel 159, Sports Grid Radio. Mark does a lot there. Joe Ranieri, Dave Sharapan, I'm on there occasionally. So another way to get some great sports betting information. Andy, we're going to have Arthur DiCesare, who you definitely get some great sports betting information from in a moment. But you're going to do a big game breakdown, Teddy style. But it's not Teddy style because he didn't even know what PFL stood for. I got to be honest. I thought you were talking lacrosse when he said you were doing well in PFL. So at least Teddy was man enough to ask what it was because I had no clue either. But it is Professional Fighters League, and you're going to give us a big game breakdown with some MMA action.
Yeah, we're on a nice 5-1 run in PFL, and our one loss, Steve, was because a guy put his hand down and broke his thumb 1 minute into the fight. That's literally been our only loss this season in PFL. It was very random. So we're seeing PFL really well, and we have a 5% play. That event goes off tonight. We've got 3 plays attached to that in PFL, and it's going to come with all of our UFC plays. We're number 1 the last 11 weeks in MMA, and we are just seeing the sport really, really well. I haven't even had very many plays this week, Steve, because I know that MMA is going to be profitable this weekend. That's what we've been waiting for. So let's do a free play here. We're going to focus on Rob Wilkinson versus Josh Silveira, and we're going to take the under 1.5 rounds at plus money. Here's one thing about PFL. You have to know how this works. It is a tournament style, and you get points based on how you win and when you win. So it's a big emphasis on finishing fights early. Only 4 people from this division advance. And Rob Wilkinson and Josh Silveira are up at the top, and not everyone's going to advance. These 2 guys need a quick finish. So I expect fireworks early. And here's the thing. Wilkinson, 16 fights in a row that he has finished. And 2 fights ago, Steve, he got popped for a banned substance. So he comes back in his last fight. And you always got to be worried about these guys that get popped for banned substances. How are they going to fight the next fight? He was a man on a mission. And he said he was a man on a mission, and he finished Tom Breeze in a minute. And he has said the same thing. I'm fighting for my reputation. I'm here to show everybody that my success has not been because of banned substances. So you know he's going to be locked in. You know he's a finisher. And Josh Silveira, he has no gas tank, Steve. He's not good striking defense. He is one of the luckiest fighters in PFL and maybe in all the sport. The guy that broke his thumb, he was the one fighting Josh Silveira. Josh Silveira got credited with a first-round knockout because the other guy put his hand down and broke his thumb. 3 fights ago, the guy he was fighting took a wrong step and blew out his knee. So Josh Silveira is getting these credits for these random knockouts when really they're injuries. And the one fighter that did piece him up on the feet and did not get hurt really beat him up for 5 rounds. These guys are going to swing for the fences. They both need finishes. I expect Wilkinson to come out on top, but plus money at under 1.5 when both guys need an early finish. Great price, great play. And don't forget to check out the 5% PFL play up. Andy Lang at WagerTalk.com.
Yeah, so Andy, I got to ask you, I mean, do you find that the odds are tougher to find? Are they moving more on the PFL? I mean, what's your take versus UFC?
Oh, yeah, they're definitely more fluid than UFC. You'll see them move up, and you'll see a lot of favorites in PFL. So you'll see a lot of parlays, and you see a lot of unders because this tournament style, it lends itself to unders. And there's so much value in unders. Like in UFC, you want to put on a good fight, but in the end, it's about winning. No. In PFL, you have to win by style. You have to. There are 5 guys in this division that all have first-round finishes in their last fight. So every single one of these guys has to put on a good show. So it lends itself to unders. That's why it's a cash cow, and that's why we've been having so much success this season.
It's a great way to diversify your portfolio. When you don't even know what the initials stand for the sport, that's probably an under-the-radar money-making opportunity. So I like it. PFL, Professional Fighters League, we know now. And once again, when you get Andy's all access, when you buy July, you get the rest of June for free. These next 10 days of June for free. That includes PFL, darts, lacrosse, UFC, soccer, golf, anything else he sees value. Just a great way to diversify. And I'm doing baseball, and he's not doing baseball. You buy both of our packages, you're getting 100% uncorrelated plays guaranteed, because the one sport I'm doing, he's not doing. He's doing about 6 others. So once again, get June for free these next 10 days and nights for both Andy Lang and myself, Steve Merrill. When you buy July, it's that simple. WagerTalk.com. All right, let's bring on Arthur DiCesare. Art, I've got to ask you, do you guys offer at the Westgate PFL? I know you have UFC, a professional fighters league, and you're taking general Art on these off sports. As a risk manager, risk supervisor, they probably make you a little bit nervous. That's why the limits are lower, right?
No doubt. We absolutely take PFL. And, Andy's right. You could see the volatility sometime in the market, the way they move. Day of fight, you'll see fights move 100, 150, 200 cents. There's a lot of craziness in how they move. Obviously, the limits are a lot lower than a UFC card, but of course, they're still offered. And he made another great point. A lot of people love to parlay the PFL, just like they do the UFC.
Yeah, you have to parlay them. Literally the fights tonight, there's only a couple that are even remotely within range of playing. I will say, Art, I'm glad you take PFL bets, but boo on the limits. Come on, man. Give us a shot. Give us a shot to cash big, man.
Yeah, and what is explain the thought process. Andy, this is a great thing to bring up for new bettors out here, because I always tell people, if you want to know what sports are more beatable, like college basketball versus, well, I do really well in the NBA. So that's not a good example, but like NFL versus college football. Art, the highest limits are the NFL, right? It's like nothing for sports books to have a $50,000 side, 5, 10,000, 20,000 totals. I remember back in the day, you couldn't even get college basketball totals except on a handful of games, and now it's even maybe 500, 1,000 at some books. So, Art, that really is the way you could tell which sports have softer lines, right, are the limits.
There's no doubt. Now this sport is growing, but just look at the WNBA. I'll take that for an example, something that's in season. The WNBA, the limits are still pretty low. Yeah, there are more public bettors getting into the space, but it has been and always will be a sharp bettors market. And college basketball, perfect example. Totals is the big one in college basketball. Sides, you'll give a little bit more room on what you'll take and what you'll be able to take. But, totals move 6, 8 points off overnight. So you got to be real careful with the totals, especially, on big days when you're booking maybe 150.
Art, how's the NFL markets for you these days? Without NBA anymore, NHL's only got 1, maybe 2 games left if they extend it. So I imagine that they're kind of transitioning over to some of the NFL. So what's the action that you guys are taking on? Are you moving lines on win totals? What's the NFL market these days?
Yeah, absolutely, Andy. We're always, now we're starting to get into that mode where, when our numbers first come out, obviously we have people who put their opinions in and come in and make their bets. And then we also have the people who are going to bet differences. That's the way it goes. Looking around town, shopping numbers, we're always going to get that. But, a couple of totals, win totals have stood out recently. Ravens under 11. We opened that 11 flat, -110 both ways. Taking some sharp under money. We're now sitting -130. Public has been on the Panthers over, which is interesting. 5.5 flat, -110. Haven't moved off of that. Cowboys was a big release the other day. Cowboys under 10.5 wins, -120. We're now sitting -160 on the Cowboys. And then you get a little bit of nibble on the over because you're offering, +135, +140. So you start to see some people come in and nibble the other way. So we kind of have to yo-yo that total and kind of play with the juice. We haven't moved off the 10.5 to 10 or 11 yet. We're not going to get there. 11, or the Lions, very public on their over. 10.5 over, even money. They've been very popular. They're popular in their division, win the Super Bowl, Goff win MVP, all sorts of things. And then real sharp action this week on the Eagles to win the NFC East. It was +120. We took a really respected bet on the Eagles at +120 to win the NFC East. We are now even money on the Eagles. They are now the favorites over the Cowboys. And you got to understand, probably a little correlation on all the money you saw on the Cowboy under money coming in on their win total with a guy coming in to bet the Eagles to win the division.
Just stole my follow-up there, Art. I was just going to say, you mentioned Cowboys under, right? So I was going to say, was that the same correlation there? So I agree with you. I want to ask you about college football, which is hot off the press as well. But real quick, Lake Show Magazine, one of our loyal viewers here on the live chat, is asking what the limits are for PFL and maybe what the difference is between PFL and UFC for you guys, just offhand. Are they a lot lower?
They are a lot lower. And I mean, it really is going to depend on the card. We have a couple of our guys who, they focus on other sports, but their main sports of expertise, are the fight game, boxing, MMA, PFL. UFC cards can even be different on limits. If you got a big main event, you're going to draw a lot of handle, the fights in town, all those type of things. PFL, you're still going to get a nickel a dime on certain fights, certain sides, things of that nature. UFC, you could see things 5, 10, 20 dimes, depending on what type of fight card it is. So it really is a drastic difference because PFL is so new, and really it is a sharp market. I mean, it's not a lot of public people coming in and wanting to lay, big favorites with the PFL unless they're parlaying. You see a lot of dogs take money too in the PFL, and that's because the sharp guys come in and feel they're getting a good number.
And by the way, Sean Alvarez just chimed in and said, I was at the Westgate last night. Love that place. So you guys are doing something right. And don't forget, when you're at the Westgate, you can go up and ask for Art by name at the counter. And as long as you're not shouting and your first name isn't Prez and your last name isn't Prez, he will probably come out and say hello to you. Apparently, Art, all seriousness, Teddy told me that the Prez is doing very well in the World Series of Poker. He said that on the show yesterday, and he's catching up with him today. So you might be safe for a while if he keeps winning. He won't be over there anytime soon looking you up. But he is in town. So if you have your head on a swivel, as we say here on the East Coast. Let's talk about some college football. I think when we last spoke a week ago, I'm not even sure you guys had released the over-under wins, right? I know you said you had some action on the advanced lines around key numbers. I think Hawaii down from 17 to 16. One game was 20.5 up to 21, 21.5. So I'll ask you, do you have the total wins out? And Teddy had just talked about how the Sharps are all over Michigan under the other day here on the show.
Total wins are not out yet, Steve, but perfect example. A couple of those games that we talked about, we said they laid 20.5 with SMU, went to 21.5. Right. This is on the road against Nevada. That game's now 23.5 SMU. So that game's really moved. Stanford, they were taking plus 10.5 at home against TCU. We just moved a little bit. We only took one sharp respected bet and went to 10. We're now Stanford plus 9 at home. So that's moved a full 1.5. So a lot of the times you get the initial move, then you get the second wave, and then you got to power move it again. So you see a lot of these games off the initial move, get bet a second time, and get moved again.
And Art, when do you think you guys will have the college win totals up? And how much do you pay attention to this sharp money coming in on Michigan at other books? I mean, they were 9.5, juiced heavy. Now they're a lot of 9. So you guys will probably set it at 9, correct?
There's no doubt, Steve. And we're looking to have it out in probably the next couple of weeks, maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks tops. We're really looking to get it out there soon. And obviously, it's very easy to look at the markets, and you have to take that into consideration. You have to look at other places. But then, obviously, we are going to spin our opinion into it and really want to find a couple of teams that maybe we think are mispriced in the market, and then we can book to those certain sides. And that is something that we always are going to do because it still is a risk business and a gambling business. And, sometimes we want to have certain sides that we book to. It's always going to be the case.
And I'll give props out to Jay. Cornegay's at the Westgate now. He was at the Imperial Palace back in the 90s when I started. And I would fly out there in the summers just to play the season over-under wins, mainly for college football. And Jay was one of the few guys 25 years ago that was ballsy enough to put them up. And there again, I think the limits were like 1,000, 500 to 1,000. But he was one of the first, if not the first. And it's pretty cool to see it a quarter century later come full circle. Now we're talking about it here on WagerTalk TV, on internet TV, which is barely around. The internet was barely around when I used to go out there to bet college totals. And the IP is no longer around, right, Art? The Imperial Palace has gone by the wayside. All right, only a couple minutes left with @ArtDice21, a great Twitter handle and a great Twitter follow. X, I got to start calling it X, guys. I noticed all the TV shows now are saying X and Instagram. I think that's the way I got to start going is X and Instagram. But @ArtDice21 on X. And MLB, any daily actionable info? And WNBA, MLB, anything else for this weekend? Any actionable info for the viewers on the way out?
Yeah, absolutely. We'll touch on a couple things baseball-wise. Took some sharp action on Diamondbacks Phillies over. We opened that total over 9, just to the over -120. So we were going to get 2 9.5 at some point. We blew right past 9.5. We're now at 10. Took some sharp money on the Yankees plus money, plus 102, plus 103 on the overnight. They are now the slight favorite over the Braves, -110. And then a little bit of WNBA action. Over money came in on the Suns at Aces. Big matchup today in Las Vegas. Over 162 has been bet up to 165, so a 3-point move to the over in the Aces game.
Last question, Art. How's the NHL season been for the books? What's the series been like from you guys, and any big-time action on tonight's game?
Yeah, this series and everything, we actually went on both teams in the future pool, so we're looking good there. We've really done a good job protecting Connor McDavid to win the Conn Smythe. He's now -3.25, and I think he's winning win, lose, or draw. I mean, obviously there's no draw, but I think if they win or lose, he's winning. I don't think anyone from Florida has separated themselves, unless Bobrovsky goes out and has a 55-save shutout tonight, maybe. But it's interesting. We opened Game 6, Edmonton -$1.20. It went down a little bit because, we're giving that 10-cent split. So a lot of plus 110 Florida money came in because maybe a little bit high on the market because there's not a lot of the plus monies out there. A lot of people dealing -115, -105. So we saw a lot of Florida money came in, and we went down and then went back up. We're now actually Edmonton -111, plus 101 on Florida. So actually right now, our best result would be Florida in 7. We'd love to see, something like that. But for us, in either scenario in the future book, we would be fine. And honestly, for us, an extra game would be good. We'd see a little bit more handle. We'd see a nice bump on Monday for our bottom line and see the bets come in. So I'm rooting for a Game 7.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing, Art. I was like, it's not a bad thing for you guys. It's another game with some handle in the dog days of summer here with just baseball and the other off sports. And by the way, Edmonton is favored, as Art mentioned. So it is more likely than not, there will be a Game 7 on Monday back in Florida. And there have been situations in the NHL where teams have come back from 0-3 deficits in history. So it's not like the NBA where it's 0-157. But I'm not following it that closely. Did not realize McDavid would probably win it either way, win or lose. It's been quite a while that we've seen that happen in any sport, an MVP from the losing team. So that's pretty cool. I might have to tune in and keep my eye on that. That is Arthur DiCesare, risk management supervisor at the Westgate Superbook in Las Vegas. You, of course, can find the Westgate in about, what is it, Art? At least 10 other states now, including my home state here of Virginia. Let us know what's going on at the Westgate.
Yes, Steve. We're in a bunch of different states. Colorado, Jersey, Arizona, Tennessee, Maryland, Virginia, Iowa, and Ohio. And looking to add maybe a couple more states as we go into the new year and come up towards football season. But, as always, guys, if you have any questions, you can reach out to me on X, Twitter, Instagram, all those type of things. Always come into the sportsbook, ask for us. And, just if you ever have questions, please feel free and reach out.
That's right. Ask for him by name. He shall appear if he's on duty. Arthur DiCesare, Westgate Superbook in Las Vegas. Really is a great place to hang out, bet, and watch sports. The best one in the strip, around the strip, in town, in my opinion, is the Westgate. And Andy and I were both there a couple summers ago for the meet and greet. I don't think we're doing a meet and greet this year, Andy, but that's something we'll have to do again soon, get back out there. It's always great to see some of the viewers. Hey, comment below. Let us know your thoughts on the games this weekend here on the replay on YouTube. And don't forget the MLB First Pitch Show will be on live at 2 o'clock Eastern. Brian Leonard and myself, Steve Merrill, breaking down all the different games. And you can interact with us in the chat as well at 2 o'clock Eastern. Andy, great hosting with you. And once again, on the way out, let everybody know what you've got going on. I've got 2 baseball best bets tonight, trying to make it 13 in a row and trying to improve on that 17-3 all sports run. Also got a very special promo code. I have not announced this anywhere yet. So, in fact, let me pull it up right now. The office sent it to me. I have not made this publicly available, but we're going to do a flash sale through this weekend for the rest of baseball for just $3.99. That works out to about $3 a day. MLB3. It's quite simple. This is running for the next 3 days, and it works out to about $3 a day. MLB3 gets the rest of my baseball season through October for just $3.99. I'll post that on my page as well. But once again, 2 baseball best bets tonight as we try to improve on that 17-3 all sports run. Steve Merrill, WagerTalk.com. And Andy Lang, let us know what you've got. Thanks for co-hosting with me, and then take us home.
I think winning the Conn Smythe when your team loses the finals might be the worst award in all of sports. Like that's just
I'm
a
fascinated by
reminder.
this, Andy. I really am. Like
I
think one of the Super Bowls had it, right? The Cowboys in like 1970s it happened, and I don't know when else it's happened, man. I'm fascinated. I didn't know
It's
this
the
was a
worst
possibility.
award ever.
Although
Do
we
you
say
put
that
that in
now,
your
Edmonton's
trophy
going to win
room?
tonight, theoretically. They might win the
Oh,
whole thing. I've said that. This guarantees now that Edmonton wins the Stanley Cup, folks. But anyway, I'll let you take us home.
5% PFL play that is up, and that's going to include all plays in PFL as well as UFC on a really nice run in PFL, 5-1, and we're number 1 in MMA the last 11 weeks. Remember to practice good bankroll management and be careful on all your bets. Good luck, and we will see everyone Monday on another episode of Wager Talk Today.